Growing up, I was never the smartest in class, and neither was I that genius kid who always gets top grades without ever studying. In fact, I was the opposite. I had to put in a lot of effort just to keep up with the smart kids. This extra effort led me to getting straight A's in school and graduating from one of the top 15 universities in UK. But it was only years later where I realized I was unknowingly following science-based principles on how to learn more effectively, which ultimately helped me get the grades I did. And the interesting part is that these principles don't only apply to academic learning, but work across learning any new skill. With that being said, here are the 5 principles to learn anything faster. Active recall simply means testing yourself. Reading the same chapter again and again isn't the best way to learn. Instead, you should actively test yourself and allow your brain to recall as much information as possible. Most people go wrong by leaving this until the day of their exam or until the day of a big event. The more effective approach is to test yourself on a regular basis, so when the big day does arrive, it feels like familiar territory for your brain. And by testing yourself regularly, you will tap into principle number 2. You need regular feedback about what you're doing right, but more importantly, what you're doing wrong. In my case, I would test myself by taking practice papers, which gave me instant feedback on where I was going wrong and my biggest weak points. The same applies to learning a new skill. Imagine you started to learn the trumpet but never recorded yourself or got any feedback. If so, there's a high chance of what sounds like music to you will sound like noise to others. Now, speaking of feedback, the best way to learn is from experts, and this is why this video has been brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform where you can access thousands of classes from industry experts across multiple different domains. For example, design, coding, business, and so much more. And the best part is, with Skillshare, you can learn at your own pace. So whether you're a beginner or a pro, you'll find a class that's right for you. For example, I recently took a class called Storytelling 101 by New York Times bestselling author Daniel Older. This class broke down the 4 key fundamentals of compelling storytelling, which gave me a great framework when thinking about how I structure and script my YouTube videos. So sign up today and use the learning principles from this video to start upskilling yourself with the help of Skillshare. And the first 500 people to use the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Okay, so far you've tested yourself and understood your weaknesses. Now it's time to double down on them with deliberate practice. The biggest problem you'll face here is that it will feel uncomfortable. And for that very reason, your brain will do everything possible to avoid your weak spots and only focus on your strengths. For example, let's say you're learning how to swim and you're already pretty good at the front stroke, but dreadful when it comes to the backstroke. This is why as soon as you enter the pool, your natural instinct will be to focus on what you're already good at and ignore your weaknesses. But if you want to become a strong swimmer or better at any particular skill, you'll have to confront your weaknesses, even if it feels uncomfortable. To further optimize your practice, follow something called spaced repetition. This is where you space your learning over regular intervals. Because there's a concept called the forgetting curve, discovered by German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus. It states that information is lost over time when there is no attempt made to retain it. In other words, if you learn something new, chances are you'll forget it as time passes, unless we revisit the topic at regular intervals. It's a bit like learning a new language. If you don't regularly practice, chances are the only thing you'll remember is how to say hello. So rather than sitting down and learning one topic for 6 hours straight, break it down into 1-hour sessions over 6 days. This method will force your brain to continually recall the same information, making the connection stronger in your mind. A bit like driving a tractor over a field once, versus driving it over the same route every single day. Eventually the path will appear itself, and your mind works in a similar way. Learning something in theory is good, but mastery only comes from practical application. For example, reading how to code is a good starting point, but eventually you just need to do the thing and start coding. Initially your code will be full of bugs and may not even work, but that's kind of the point. The feedback will make you a better coder, and with time you'll be able to progressively overload to more advanced levels of code. So if you want to become a better learner, test yourself, get regular feedback, work on your weaknesses, follow spaced repetition, and implement your learnings into the real world.